Discovering the wild north of Pakistan has been in my mind for many years. I have dreamt of its high mountains and mysterious people ever since I read a great travel book written by German tourists in the 90s, and watched the videos of a YouTuber called Eva Zubek, who really helped demystify Pakistan among the broader public. With its mysterious people and unique culture that have managed to resist mass tourism, and its legendary landscapes counting many 8,000 meters peak, including the legendary K2, the second highest mountain in the world, Gilgit-Baltistan, the most northern province of Pakistan, has been a beacon of light attracting me across the distance. And after so long, it was finally my turn to cross that bridge and discover it. My journey to Gilgit-Baltistan started at Islamabad airport, which is relatively small and unremarkable. However, this airport is also the only place where I could take a plane to the north of the country. Indeed, there are two options to go to Gilgit-Baltistan. The first one is long and involves a full day of driving, along a road that can sometimes be dangerous. I had heard, nonetheless, that the landscapes on the way were beautiful, but I didn't want to waste a full day on the road. Instead, I picked the second option, that was to fly directly to the north from the capital city. It is surprisingly expensive for a 1-hour flight, due to the monopoly of the local airline on this route. You can count around €100 one way. Moreover, due to the quick changing weather conditions in the high mountain areas, flights are often cancelled. But this option is nevertheless faster, and the view it offers on the Karakoram mountain range is unmatched. After a little bit more than 1 hour in the air, we finally reached the first destination in my trip in northern Pakistan, the beautiful Skardu Valley. Skardu is very well known as the big hub for mountaineers and trekkers, as it is one of the starting points to go climb K2. When the plane landed, I was greeted with one of the most beautiful sights ever. The airport was in the middle of the valley, surrounded by mountains. It was most likely the coolest onboarding I ever had. After taking a few pictures, we took the bus to go to the airport proper. There, I was met with my guide for the whole trip in Gilgit-Baltistan, Mukim. Mukim owns a tour agency called Climax Adventure Pakistan. It had been recommended to me by friends who had done some tours with him, and I learned later that he worked in the past with super famous people, like Mike Horn, the famous adventurer, and Eva Zubek, that I mentioned earlier in the video. In any case, after a quick introduction, we jumped in the 4x4 and drove towards our hotel in Skardu.
So this is the main Skardu Bazaar.
Okay.
On the other side, yeah. Sometimes in the evening they play polo.
After 30 minutes of driving, we finally reached our hotel for the next couple of days. There were not a lot of hotels open at this season. The bedrooms themselves were pretty simple, but had all the basic commodities that were needed. And the view from the hotel on the valley and the Indus River was beautiful. I was very lucky to have arrived at this season in the valley, as all the apricot trees were blossoming, and you could see white petals everywhere. It felt a little bit like being in Japan during the cherry blossom season. After a quick lunch, we jumped back on the car to start exploring. We're driving toward a nearby valley called Shigar. and it was like a mini road trip across landscapes that were mind-blowing. A picture is worth more than 1,000 words, so let me show you. After a bit more than an hour, we reached our destination for the afternoon, Shigar Valley. A great starting point to delve into the local Balti culture. The northern territories of Pakistan, despite only having 2 million inhabitants, hold a huge diversity of languages and cultures that has been preserved by the relative isolation of the region. Balti is the second most spoken language in the region, and the lingua franca in Skardu and Shigar. The language is related to Old Tibetan and has preserved many linguistic features now lost in modern Tibet. But Shigar, beyond its unusual language, is also a perfect example of the local Balti culture that has been shaped by its location on the old Silk Road and the multitude of people that traveled through it. And the best example of this is Shigar Fort, the former royal residence of the Raj of Shigar.
I've arrived in Skardu, and so far it's just jaw-dropping. It's beautiful, and we're visiting an old fort in Skardu that looks quite nice, all in wood and mudstones. And you have this tree that is supposedly one of the oldest in the valley, but it's beautiful, especially with all the trees which are in blossom right now. I'm very glad I came, and I came at this time.
The fort is locally known as Fonghar, or the Palace of Rocks, and was constructed in the early 17th century. Fonghar replaced an older fort, the ruins of which can still be seen further up the mountain. Over the years, the fort has undergone meticulous restoration, preserving its intricate woodwork and ornate carvings. It has been turned into a luxury hotel in the early 2000s, with some rooms remaining as a museum to give an idea of what life in the valley was like centuries ago. Inside the fort, carved wood is everywhere and shows the influence of Kashmir and Tibetan art on the local architecture. My guide explained to me that most of the metal objects were not from the valley, but had been purchased by the local rulers across the years, as a sign of status. The cooking pots and other utensils were often made out of stone, which was very good at transmitting heat.
And those were candles.
Lamp candles.
So they were putting the fat of animal inside to burn it as a...
Yes. Oil.
After the fort, we started visiting the city proper. where I discovered the fascinating religious history of the region that is beautifully illustrated by the 400 years old Mosque of Shigar. Indeed, Burman and Tibetan Buddhism were the dominant religions practiced by the Balti people until the arrival of Islam in Baltistan by the 14th century CE. By the end of the 17th century, most of the Balti people had converted to Islam. And nowadays, around 60% are Shia, while the remaining 40% are Sufis or Sunni Muslims. The architecture of the old mosque in Shigar reflects the cultural influences of the region, with a mix of Tibetan, Kashmiri, and Persian styles. It was beautiful and a great example of local Balti architecture. You could clearly feel that you were in a very different place from the rest of Pakistan. We stayed a little longer in Shigar to take a couple of pictures. But quickly enough, we started heading back to Skardu. We arrived at the hotel sometime before sunset, and were lucky to admire the valley painted in beautiful colors. We finished our day at a local restaurant where I tried momtu, delicious local dumplings similar to Tibetan momos, and salty tea, which I have to say is more of an acquired taste. It was a great way to end this amazing first day in the north of Pakistan. It had been the most beautiful adventure I experienced in this trip, full of unique cultures and jaw-dropping landscapes. Gilgit-Baltistan really lived up to my expectations, and I couldn't wait to discover more of it. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If so, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to support the channel. And if you like this kind of content, get ready for the next episode where I discover Skardu Valley proper. In the meantime, I wish you a great evening and I leave you with great pictures. Tschüss!